Hey folks, Racer X here. Yes, Jason Weigandt performing a bike test. This is the 2019 Yamaha off-road intro. We are in beautiful South Carolina. This is home of Randy Hawkins, former AMA National Enduro champ. He's the one that runs Yamaha's factory off-road team in the Grand National Cross Country Series. So no better place to check out Yamaha's 3 closed course competition off-road bikes for 2019. It starts with the YZ250FX. Everyone's favorite bike, the YZ250X, which is the 2-stroke, but with a little bit of off-road flavor compared to the traditional YZ250. And all new for 2019, completely redesigned, the YZ450FX. Now this is a critical moment for all the Japanese manufacturers, I feel. The closed course competition off-road segment, that's a niche. Usually in the past, when the Japanese brands have made off-road bikes, they made what would be considered sticker legal bikes. They're very quiet, and in some states like California that actually count emissions for off-road vehicles, that means that they actually have to pass emissions testing. So the bikes are somewhat watered down from a motocross bike. Now we all know there are some European brands, KTM and Husqvarna, that have specialized in forgetting all that and saying we're building bikes for off-road racing. They are not sticker legal. We have motocross exhaust systems. They are essentially motocross bikes, a little bit larger gas tank, a side stand, an 18-inch rear wheel, and maybe some mapping differences with the engine. Well, a few years ago, Yamaha jumped headlong into that market as well. They started with the 250FX, then the 250X, the 2-stroke version, and then the 450FX. And now the redesigned 450FX is even better than those. We had a chance to ride all 3 of the bikes throughout 2 days here at Randy Hawkins' property. And I really surprised myself. Like, I know you're watching this right now saying to yourself, is Weege even any good at riding a motorcycle? No, I'm not. I didn't grow up riding dirt bikes, okay? I've learned along the way. There's a reason I attended an off-road intro and not a motocross intro, because when you're 26 years old and you're getting on a dirt bike for like first time in your life, learning to jump jumps is very difficult, but you can learn to ride trails. So that's essentially what I do, and I usually race at least one GNCC every year when I can skip a weekend of Supercross in the spring. So I have some experience riding in the type of conditions these bikes are designed for, but still I'm not all that good. So I thought for sure that the 250FX, the 4-stroke 250F, would be the bike for me for sure. And that's the first bike we rode yesterday, and it was very good. I actually have a similar 250XEF from KTM at home, so it's cool to compare the two. Really like the motor on the Yamaha, and it feels so solid. There's a creek crossing that we got to go through that was littered with rocks, and the bike didn't dance over any of those rocks, even though they were completely soaked. So I really like the feel of that 250F, and I figured that was going to be the best bike for me. Then at the end of the day yesterday, I hopped on the 250X. That's the YZ250 2-stroke style bike. Again, a little bit different changes to the engine to make it a little milder compared to the motocross bike, more controllable. Suspension's a little softer, 18-inch rear wheel, side stand. But the base platform is that legendary YZ250, which is where Jeremy McGrath won his final Supercross titles on. That motor is still great, the platform is still excellent. Now, I hadn't ridden a 250 2-stroke in a long time, and I figured, especially in the woods, that bike would be pipey and it'd be a handful. But it was actually quite the opposite. The old 2-stroke is still narrower and lighter feeling than the 250F. It's not a whole lot lighter on a scale anymore, because the 4-strokes keep getting lighter, but to ride it, it really felt nimble. And really between the 250F and the 250X, it just mattered what part of the trail you're on, which bike was better. In the real tight single track and in the trees, I really like the 2-stroke. When you're going across areas where you need stability though, that 4-stroke just trucked through, and rocks and tree roots and things like that didn't send you left and right like what would happen on the 2-stroke. But I was pleasantly surprised how rideable that YZ250 style 2-stroke was for me. And of course it sounds awesome, and everybody thinks 2-strokes are excellent now. So really not much to argue. It's really a bike that you should check out. And I might add that for a lot of riders, even if you're doing some motocross or a lot of motocross, these are essentially motocross bikes with only a few changes, and by making the power output a little bit milder, there are some changes to the gearing. They have wide ratio gearboxes. There's a little bit different cylinder head design on the 250 2-stroke, but these bikes could be taken to a motocross track, I'm confident, and depending on your level, they might actually be better for you because the power is a little bit more rideable and the suspension is a little bit softer. Now today we got to ride the all-new 2019 450FX. This is based on the new 450 platform that Yamaha debuted with their 450 motocross bike last year. And everyone felt that the bike was a huge step forward on the motocross side, and they were equally excited to see it in an off-road setting in 2019. And here's what's really interesting. They've made the bike feel more narrow and compact. There was a lot of charts and graphs that they gave us in a technical dissertation, and just by making the radiators at a different angle, which allows the gas tank to be a little bit concave, it makes it narrower where your knees are. The seat doesn't come up nearly as high in the back, so it's a little bit flatter. A lot of things that make the bike feel more compact. So here's what's going to blow your mind. Because the 450 is now on the new platform, the 250FX is not. In some ways, the 450 actually felt easier to ride and more nimble. I assumed for myself that a 450 in single track woods would be unrideable for a rider at my level, but I was shocked at how good that 450 is. Now maybe it's because it's the second day I was riding, which is like double the amount of riding I've done all year, so maybe I just got better in one day. And for sure the trails were more defined today, so the track was probably a little easier to ride. So it's a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison to ride a 250F yesterday and a 450 today. But I felt that the 450 was actually more rideable and more comfortable to sit on, even ergonomically. Suspension was a little stiff for someone my weight. I'm very trim, 160 pounds. But I really like the 450. And what's also cool is that that 450 now includes the power tuner. Every bike has a map on the handlebar switch. That's not really new technology anymore, but Yamaha takes it a step further. With Bluetooth, you have an app on your phone, which I did download, and you can change the mapping in the bike. You can design your own maps, or you can pick from a series of maps that Yamaha has already developed. So the bike comes with 2 maps stock. There is a normal map and a little bit milder power map, which is designed to give you better traction if you're in mud or tricky situations. I really liked actually the stock map. There were times when you're in that real tight single track in the trees where second gear on a 450 is really snappy and a bit much. So that was nice to be able to just hit the bar, the button on the bar, and go to a milder map. So I went back and forth with those two. They were really nice, and it was a cool thing that even a rider at my level could actually tell the difference. Then we loaded up some new maps in the bike with the Power Tuner app. We went with a Torquey map, and that was awesome. It even made the bike sound cooler. And I talked to someone who actually has been testing bikes for a long time, Jimmy Lewis of Dirt Bike Test, and I said, when I had the Torquey map, the bike felt like this. And he said, yes, looking at how rich the mixture is, that is actually how the bike would feel. So I got it right. I actually felt what the bike was supposed to feel like. So I'm telling you, if I could tell the difference, you can. I also tried an even mellower map, and I didn't like that much. The bike was so lean that it didn't really want to rev out. And even on a 450 in some of the open sections, it's kind of nice to take a bike through the gears and really rev it out. And it was so lean, it didn't really like that. But in really gnarly terrain, rocks or a steep hill climb, that might actually be cool to have something that has that much traction. So it was awesome to play with that tuner. You can also log how many hours you put on the bike, to log all your maintenance, and it even has a chart. You can put in every setting on the bike. So if you conceivably went to a race, you could say, I did these clicker settings on the fork and shock, and this is what I use at this track on this day. So it's a lot easier way to keep track of every race you've ever logged on a motorcycle than having pen and paper, which I would inevitably lose. So the real lesson for me today is this. I thought at my level that the 250F would be easily the best bike for me, easily the most rideable. I was pleasantly surprised how rideable the 252 stroke was. In many conditions, it was actually even better than the 4-stroke. I know you 2-stroke people, you've been telling us this for 15 years. I understand. And the 450, which I thought could not even be ridden by someone the likes of me in these trees, was actually my favorite bike of all, especially when you consider how much work you can do to the bike mapping wise. It really allows you to adjust the bike whether you're on a fast track, in a tight woods, if you're in a motocross track, if you're slow or if you're fast. And the ergonomics and the overall chassis and feel, I was shocked how nimble and light feeling the 450 was. Now, of course, I did crash many times because that's what I do. It is a bit of a burden to pick up that motorcycle when you tip it on a hill climb, but you're probably better than me and you won't have to deal with that. So really kudos to Yamaha. They've really taken, I think, the strong points of their traditional 450 platform. The motor is superb. It has a ridiculous amount of low-end grunt. The bike is very stable and solid and planted. They kept all that, but the new bike feels a lot more nimble. It corners a lot better. It doesn't feel as bulky when you're riding it, and it didn't seem like a fire-breathing, uncontrollable 450 like I expected it to. So kudos to those folks. And on a grander scale, I think it's awesome to see the Japanese manufacturers saying, yep, we're gonna have our trail bike line and our motocross line. For Yamaha, it's YZs and WRs. And we're also gonna have the closed course competition style off-road bike. And we're gonna keep going into that market and keep updating the bikes. I would assume there's probably changes coming for the rest of the bikes that we tried in the years to come. So Yamaha is all in this market. Randy Hawkins and his Ampro Yamaha team are all in on GNCC racing. It was cool to ride on their turf, and the bikes are really fun. And I even had Travis Preston to do the wrenching on my bike every time I crashed it and broke something. So I feel honored to have a Supercross champ working on my bike. So an awesome weekend overall, a dream scenario for me to be part of a bike test. It was awesome. So thanks Yamaha, and check out these bikes. They're at dealers now. But if you're thinking you like one, you owe it to yourself to maybe try all three if possible, because you might just surprise yourself how versatile these bikes really are.